right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the outpost of the Attorney General's office here in Cranston on Howard Avenue, a facility where we actually have the ability to bring so many members of law enforcement and beyond together to talk about a really important issue and a major step forward for all Rhode Islanders with this body cam program that we are about to roll out to officers all across the state. I want to begin by acknowledging and thanking a number of individuals who have had a significant part in making this day happen. And you can see by looking around the room just how many voices, thoughts, input was necessary to make today possible. You know, I want to begin by recognizing my colleagues in law enforcement, the chiefs of police. They have come together to work with my office and Colonel Weaver at the State Police and the Department of Public Safety to put together a strong program, a program that reaches nearly every police officer, frontline police officer in the state, and is doing it in a way, according to a policy, that frankly had challenges in putting it together in terms of what made the most sense and what would serve the public the best, but they worked really hard to make that happen. And I want to acknowledge four chiefs in particular that worked as a team, if you will, a subset of chiefs to work with our team to make this happen. That would be Mike Winquist from Cranston, Brad Connor from Warwick, Sean Corrigan from Narragansett, who is also the president of the Police Chiefs Association, Scott Rains from Little Compton, and of course the executive director of the Police Chiefs Association, Sid Wardell, who has just done such great work in pulling us all together and making this happen. Again, I want to acknowledge Colonel Weaver and Major Ludovici for her work on this important topic. And so that is a part of what brings us here today. This is a really important day for Rhode Island, and frankly, a really good one. You know, as Attorney General, I've said before, typically when I'm standing in front of a podium, I don't get a chance to smile very often because the news that I'm delivering is oftentimes bad news. But this is a really good day for Rhode Islanders. We are making enormous advances technologically in this country, and as law enforcement, we need to do the same. You know, things aren't the way they were when I became an assistant attorney general back in 1996. You know, back then, for example, DNA was rarely used. I think my colleague Steve Danbrook used DNA for the first time on a homicide case on a Little Compton. Today we're using DNA all the time, as Commissioner Parry knows and Chief Clements knows, in Providence as we pursue gun violence. You know, technology is advancing, and law enforcement, as I said, needs to advance with it. And body cameras are an important piece of that. You know, the reality is that the public, whether it be a judge or a jury or the public generally, expects to see what happened out on the streets. And body cameras are obviously a means of making that happen. You know, it reminds me of my days when I was United States Attorney when, you know, there was this notion in federal law enforcement that we never had to record a defendant's statement, or we never had to record a witness statement. And those federal agencies had to be, frankly, encouraged and ultimately pulled into a place about a decade ago where they too needed to record statements. And so technology advances, the expectations of all of us in law enforcement rise, and body cameras are a significant way of meeting that renewed expectation. You know, I think there's a lot of credit to go around today. You know, I particularly want to thank those law enforcement agencies that were headed down this road, or had headed down this road long before we were thinking of a statewide initiative. Providence Police, you know, again, Chief Clements, thanks for being here, has had body cameras on for quite a long time and used them to good effect for investigative purposes, to understand what happened in an interaction between a police officer and a member of the public. It's all about finding truth, and through truth we find justice. Newport Police has also had a program for some time, and they've been really helpful, those two departments. Again, Commissioner Parry, the chief in Newport, have been really helpful to us in guiding our efforts to come up with a policy that really makes sense for all of us. And so today we are here to announce the rolling out of the money to put cameras on everyone, as well as the completion of our policy that will be in effect within a matter of a couple of weeks. We're going through the Secretary of State process to roll that out formally, but that policy is now complete. based on best practices and input that we've gotten from a lot of quarters. I want to recognize others who you'll be hearing from today. Of course, Colonel Weaver will give us the details as to where the money will go and how much money is going where. Again, I want to recognize and thank Chief Sean Corrigan from Narragansett, who's done such great work on this project. Senator Jack Reid and all the delegation, Senator Whitehouse, Representative Congressman Cicilline, who's here, Jim Langevin, Congressman Langevin, for bringing additional money to the table. Members of the General Assembly, Representative Batista, Senator Jonathan Acosta were really spearheading this program at the General Assembly. But we all know that things at the General Assembly oftentimes don't get over the finish line without the help and assistance of leadership. So I want to thank Speaker Sicarci and the Senate President as well, Dominic Ruggiero, for his leadership, their leadership in making today happen. We're also going to hear from Jim Vincent. And Jim has been a strong voice for the community, helping us understand why body cameras matter to the community, as they do to all of us and law enforcement as well. And finally, I just want to acknowledge Mayor Grebian, who has joined us. I may be missing some other elected leaders here, but I want to acknowledge you, Mayor, for your support of this program. The reality is that as a result of today's announcement, we are going to be putting body cameras on frontline officers in 42 law enforcement agencies across the state. That is a lot of law enforcement officers, which will now have the tools to bring us into the century in which we are operating. And so I'm grateful for all of that work. All right, and so with that, I'm going to turn matters over to Colonel Weaver and ask him to share with you the mechanics of where we go from here. Colonel, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I am proud to say the Department of Public Safety and the Rhode Island State Police have played a key role in securing federal funds and constructing the policies that will govern the use of the body-worn camera program. We are excited that 42 departments will participate in the program and that it will include 1,773 cameras. We are fortunate to have professionalism and collaboration in state and municipal agencies that allow us to work together to deliver effective and cost-efficient programs for the people we serve. Today's announcement is the culmination of months of this productive teamwork, and I am thankful to our state and municipal partners for their efforts. During the last year, we have worked collaboratively with our partners in law enforcement to develop the policies that will govern the use and operation of body-worn cameras by police departments statewide. All municipal and state police departments receiving grant funds through the Statewide Body-Worn Camera Program must adopt this policy that protects constitutional rights, documents critical interactions between police and members of the public, promotes transparency, and reflects the thoughtful input of citizens and advocacy groups throughout the public comment process. Outfitting our troopers and members of law enforcement with body-worn cameras is a key milestone as we work to address the issues that are challenges in policing today. Cameras will add transparency, provide accountability, and give a point of view of perspective to every police contact. I expect that cameras will foster greater trust between citizens and their police departments, helping to lower complaints and improve relationships. These cameras will substantially improve the quality of evidence we collect and conduct investigations more efficiently. I appreciate the support and efforts of Governor McKee, the policymakers and elected officials who have allocated funding for this important program, and I look forward to seeing the cameras deployed in the very near future. Thank you. I would now like to ask Chief Sean Corrigan, the Police Chief of the Narragansett Police Department and President of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. Police departments of Rhode Island are dedicated to upholding the best policing policies in an effort to keep our communities and our officers safe. In 2020, Rhode Island Police Department signed on to the 20 for 20 campaign. The 20 promises that we made to our communities were a commitment to adopting the following best practices so that we continue to carry out our duties fairly and impartially. As part of this initiative, each police department pledged to explore establishing a body-worn camera program. The Rhode Island Police Chief Association pledged to explore funding and policy guidelines. The Rhode Island Police Chief Association has been a strong proponent of the implementation and use of body-worn cameras as a valuable tool for modern policing. Body-worn cameras have been shown to provide immense benefit to both police departments and the communities they serve. They further law enforcement objectives as an additional tool to collect evidence and information, as well as facilitate professionalism and enhance training and opportunities. In addition, technology can positively impact police-community relations by expediting the resolution of police misconduct complaints and bolstering public trust by improving transparency and accountability. I would like to thank every stakeholder that has been involved in this process. This includes the Attorney General's office, state police leadership, many municipal police chiefs, and participants from the police departments themselves, ranking officers, Rhode Island legislature, and the governor's offices as well. We also received feedback from the labor unions, the IBPO, FOP, and the Troopers Union. And we also received feedback from the public, which was always the first step of all of our policy meetings. We recognize that not every community is able to take on the cost of developing a body-worn camera program or to obtain the technical or personnel resources. The funding announced today will help ensure communities have the necessary support. I also wish to recognize all the chiefs across the state who have shown the willingness to back this initiative and who have begun pilot programs throughout the state. Positive police-community relationships are built on mutual trust, legitimacy, and transparency. Body-worn cameras are an asset that can help strengthen the foundation of these relationships and, in turn, the safety of our communities. The Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association is pleased to see this important initiative move forward, and we will continue to support the state's police departments as their individual programs progress. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Reid.
Well, thank you very much, Chief. It is an honor to be here. And let me begin, as the Attorney General did, by saluting the police chiefs that are here, the police officers that are here. I'm extraordinarily proud of the police departments in the state of Rhode Island. They are the best in the country, in my view, because of their commitment to the communities they serve, because of their professionalism, and the great pride they have in serving their community. So thank you for this. Attorney General, thank you, as always. Colonel Weaver, thank you for your great leadership in this regard. My colleague, Congressman Cicilline, David, thank you. And State Representative Jose Bautista and State Senator Jonathan Acosta, as was pointed out, the final sort of mile to the touchdown, whatever, it comes from the state legislature. So thank you for your great work there. Thank you very much. And then we've got Jim Vincent, who's a great, great community leader and works so closely with our police departments. There are so many to thank. Again, I have to particularly point out the great work of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association. Its Executive Director, Chief Sid Wardell, thank you very much. And also the Attorney General's Community Advisory Board, because it was intimately involved in these details. This all, I think, began about a year ago when the delegation announced a $1.5 million grant from the Department of Justice to the Rhode Island Department of Public Safety. So I'm just delighted today that through careful and thorough work, they're able to distribute these funds in terms of about 1,773, as Colonel Weaver said, to devices, and also more than 42, or at least 42 law enforcement agencies will participate. Rhode Island cities and towns have been leaders in this effort. The Providence Police Department, under the leadership of Commissioner Perry and Chief Hugh Clemens, is one of the first departments in New England to have body cameras on their police officers. So Rhode Island once again led the way. This federal grant will help other departments, those 42 law enforcement agencies, have the same types of equipment. And it's critical, because the evidence is clear that body-worn cameras help police keep our communities safer. By documenting encounters between police and the public, cameras provide law enforcement and prosecutors with highly reliable evidence to win convictions and secure plea deals. Cameras also help our communities by holding the police accountable. Members of the public and police officers across Rhode Island will now have accurate records of their interactions. In a world where anyone can take out a cell phone and film someone in public, maintaining accurate records of law enforcement encounters has never been more enforcement. If we want true accountability, we need to ensure that there is a video from the police officer also. That provides both sides of the story, which is essential for all of us. And I think this factor will elevate the interactions between citizens and police officers in a very positive way. It all comes down to trust. That's what these officers and these chiefs have established in their communities. Thank you very much. And now it's my great pleasure to recognize and turn over to my colleague in the House, Congressman David Cicilline, who is a critical member of the House Judiciary Committee. David.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here. I want to thank the Attorney General for inviting me to participate in this really exciting announcement. Of course, it's always great to be with our senior senator, Senator Reid, and I know we all speak on behalf of both Senator Whitehouse and Congressman Langevin. I also want to recognize State Senator Jonathan Acosta, who he, along with Representative Jose Bautista, I know led the fight in the General Assembly. I want to congratulate them and thank them. Of course, Chief Corrigan and Colonel Weaver, Chief Clemens, the other chiefs that are here, and of course Jim Vincent, who plays such an important role to be sure that the community's voice is heard throughout this process. I want to say congratulations to all the state and local agencies who are receiving funding today through the new Statewide Body-Worn Camera Program. A wise police chief once told me that the single most powerful weapon we have to fight crime is not a firearm, is not some military-style equipment, but it's the trust and confidence of the community. And I think the last few years have shown us how vital it is to foster good relationships between our communities and local police departments, and to equip law enforcement with the tools that they need to function efficiently and safely, while also protecting our communities and maintaining transparency and accountability. And body cameras can be a tool to help accomplish this goal and provide for better evidence collection and really building trust between the police and the community. Unfortunately, though, even though they may want to, many law enforcement agencies across the country and even here in Rhode Island couldn't afford to provide body cameras to their officers. And in fact, a November 2018 study by the Bureau of Justice Statistics found that agencies not using body-worn cameras stated that cost was the primary barrier. And so Rhode Island has taken this really innovative approach, unanimously passing state legislation last year to tackle this hurdle by establishing a statewide body-worn camera program, building on the extraordinary work of the Attorney General's office that has been really focused on researching best practices and engaging with body camera vendors and with the Police Chiefs Association. This program will help, as has been mentioned, 42 local and state public safety agencies purchase 1,773 cameras and also cover the cost of related hardware, software, storage, and administration. I want to end where I began to really say thank you particularly to the local leaders, Senator Acosta and Representative Bautista, who championed this legislation and worked really collaboratively and thoughtfully with a group of stakeholders to create a program that enhances community safety and trust and supports law enforcement. Our state leaders included $50 million into the budget to establish this program, and I was remarking to the Attorney General, it's usually the case that we bring federal money and there has to be a 10% match. This was the reverse. The state made a $50 million investment. We brought a 10% match of $1.5 million, but I think it shows that this is a priority at the local, state, and federal level, and it's going to make a real difference in communities all across Rhode Island, help us fight crime, improve policing, and build trust. So again, thank you to everyone who's been part of this, and we all look forward to seeing these funds put to good use. And with that, I now would like to welcome one of the architects of this program, Senator Jonathan Acosta.
Thank you, Congressman, and thank you to everybody who's here. I won't be redundant in naming everybody again. But it would probably come as no surprise to those of you gathered here, and those of you who may be watching at home, that we all approach this from very different perspectives, from very different angles. And personally, I'm very grateful that despite coming from different places, from different experiences, from even on the side of the badge, from policing very different communities, that we were able to sit down and have difficult conversations about what this policy would, could, and should look like. I'm particularly grateful to the two local law enforcement agencies in the district that I represent. So Colonel Robeson, Chief Robeson, Chief Gonsalves, Captain Driscoll in Pawtucket, Sergeant Matuk in Central Falls, who were willing to have very candid conversations and who are willing to work together and aggregate up to the state level as we find ourselves here today to make this announcement. So a little over a year ago, we took one step. Today we take another step in the form of this announcement, and I would invite everybody to be both proud and critical. I think we should be proud to have a statewide policy. We are one of the first states to do this. We are one of the first states to collaborate with almost every single law enforcement agency in the state, with the Attorney General's office, with the General Assembly, to sit down and say, hey, here's what you can expect from a body-worn camera policy in our state. It doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter which agency it is. The expectations are the same. And that's helpful for everybody. That's helpful for your lay citizen who's interacting with law enforcement. It's helpful for law enforcement who's being trained centrally and who might move from department to department or community to community. I invite us to be critical in at least two ways. The first is in interrogating those agencies or that agency who maybe decided not to participate in the program and have candid conversations about why. And the second is in recognizing what I'm very grateful for the Attorney General's office in recognizing, that this policy is imperfect. It was made by people, and all policies made by people, and particularly in a domain like law enforcement that is constantly evolving and the demands are changing, needs to be revisited. And so over the course of the next year, I invite law enforcement, members of the public, lawmakers, members of the Attorney General's office to keep an eye on this. What's working? What's not working? How can we make it better so that we can continue to try to perfect something that is imperfect? And so I want to thank everybody again, and it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce my colleague and friend in the House, Rep. Acosta.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is so great to see you. What a collection of members of the community here in Rhode Island. It's hard with so many great speakers who have already spoken and said so much of what I already wanted to say, and so I'll just try to keep my comments very brief to about maybe 3 points. And number one is that today I am proud of Rhode Island. I'm proud of Rhode Island every day, but particularly today for so many of the things that Senator Acosta mentioned. These issues are difficult, and we're both still technically first-term elected officials, hopefully soon to be second-term elected officials, but on the campaign trail, it's very easy to talk to constituents and to want to tell them what it is that they want to hear, and that you're going to get into the General Assembly and move things around and make the world more just. And I don't want to speak for Jonathan, but I think that once you have the privilege to step into these roles and to serve, you understand that change is a lot more difficult than you think. And that collaboration and working together is ultimately the best path to get there. So as I look across the room and I see so many members of our federal delegation, of our state delegation, of our General Assembly, of our press, and of our police officers, I am moved by that, thinking that we were all able to come together to put this ball forward. I suspect not everyone is happy with this legislation or with the details of the policies of this idea, but as far as I know, I've yet to know one piece of legislation that is perfect. And so I'm humbled and honored to work with each and every one of you, and I appreciate everything that everyone has done to make today a reality. Point number two, I want to speak directly to police officers, of which there are so many here today.
I want to speak for myself. I know that in the past, many have tried to speak for me, and so let me speak clearly. I see you, I hear you, I appreciate you. I understand that too many times you are literally putting your lives on the line to serve Rhode Island, and nobody underestimates that. And so to the extent that we talk about accountability, to the extent that we talk about justice or reform in criminal justice, please understand that that has nothing to do with any individual as a person, but us talking about how to perfect our institutions. Which, thinking about that, my third point is what I think about this moving forward. We've been dealing with this issue for a very long time. This issue is not technology or cameras or race or anything of the like. In fact, if you go back as far as Benjamin Franklin, you hear him say, those who, what is it, how does it go? You can't choose either liberty or security. You have to have both, right? And that's a friction, that's really hard work. Preserving the civil liberties of individuals. Many people, thousands of people that I've represented in the public defender's office and in private practice, you cannot preserve their civil liberties without talking about public safety. It is not an either or, it is an and. And these cameras, in addition to providing evidence and helping the public understand what's happening, are also going to give rise to some very uncomfortable questions about civil liberties. As a defense attorney, I'm well aware that our Supreme Court has language regarding resisting arrest along the lines that the street or the public or the community, that is not the place to challenge the law. If an officer is going to arrest you, even if you feel that there's no reason, etc., that is not the place to fight the law. And I agree. So we are creating the place where we can have those conversations. What is an arrest? What is custody? What is reasonable suspicion? These are all conversations that we've been having since the beginning of this country, and I suspect we'll continue to have for a long time. And it is my hope that we are able to do the best to harness our collective technology, experience, effort, to ultimately achieve the best result, which is safety for everybody. So thank you so much. It's taken a lot of work to get to this point. This is the beginning, not the end. And with that said, I'd like to conclude my remarks and invite a personal friend and colleague, somebody who's gotten my name wrong at these conferences before, but somebody whose name I'm going to get right, Mr. Jim Vincent, the president of the NAACP.
Wow. Well, thank you to everybody for being here. This is truly a great day in Rhode Island. And I'm the last speaker, so. Anyway, in June 2021, I participated in the announcement of the Statewide Body-Worn Camera Program, and I am pleased to see how far the initiative has come, going from a well-thought-out policy concept to a program with guidelines and the purchasing of cameras. Police body-worn cameras are tools that we have seen become a best practice throughout the country, and Rhode Island law enforcement agencies now have the opportunity to implement them in a significant way. Not only was this a worthwhile idea, but it was a worthwhile investment, and we can thank leaders at the state and federal level for making it happen. Thank you. The entities that are involved in making this happen did so because they listened to a variety of constituencies and community members and realized that body-worn cameras can benefit everyone. Everyone. This tool can dramatically improve fact-finding in law enforcement, investigations and use of force reviews, and ultimately help build that trust between police agencies and the communities they serve, which is what we want. These are tools that we have come to expect from our police departments. We've seen their use quell unwarranted criticisms, and we've seen them bring troubling conduct to light. Either way, they help promote accountability and transparency to police work. Used right, they can be a force for good and a vehicle towards greater professionalism and better training. I applaud the legislative efforts, especially of Representative Bautista and Senator Acosta and others who made this funding a reality. Our federal delegation for always supporting our communities with federal resources. The Office of the Attorney General for their work on the rules surrounding these cameras. And finally, the Rhode Island State Police in managing the grant program. And most importantly, our police chiefs and rank and file members of law enforcement for their steadfast commitment in support of this program in their service to the people of this state. I thank you.